Welcome to this special edition of the MeidasTouch podcast. I'm Ben Meiselas. I'm joined by Congressmember Maxwell Frost. Congressmember, it's good to have you here. We're talking about the disastrous budget bill, where it stands right now. I know that there's discussions at the Rules Committee. I know that the MAGA Republicans want to try to push this for a vote as soon as tomorrow. It seems that's what they're pushing for. It passed the Senate 50 to 50 with the tie-breaking vote being cast by Vice President J.D. Vance. Lisa Murkowski voted in favor of the disastrous budget bill, but then said she hates the bill and she hopes that the members of Congress change the bill because she didn't like what she voted on. That's kind of the same thing we heard with a lot of MAGA Republican Congress members. They said they hated it and were hoping that the Senate would change it. The Senate made it worse. And so right now it's back at the House. We've got you here. I know you met recently with a bunch of other Democrats to talk, strategy, what's going to happen. So first, maybe where are we? Then where do we go from here? Then we've got some questions for you, Congressman, from people across the country.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. Okay, so where are we? Number one, we kind of out of nowhere, we're told, all right, it's moving through the Senate. We need everyone to get to D.C. So, I canceled my events in Orlando, took the first flight to D.C. this morning. Right now, the bill is in the Rules Committee, which is the last committee it goes through before it gets to the House floor. What we have to do in this moment is delay every moment we can, because it, number one, helps exploit a lot of the cracks in the coalition on the Republican side, hopefully leading to a place where more and more people will vote against this thing. But then number two, every minute that we delay this bill, it gets more and more unpopular, and it makes it so that way people at home can go to the district offices of their members of Congress, their Republican members of Congress, call, push, and this bill is the most unpopular bill we've seen in modern history thus far. That means actually the way we're talking about it is working, and we need to continue to talk about it, continue to protest at home, continue to make those calls to hopefully move more of these Republican members of Congress to hopefully vote no on the bill, which is the goal. So what we Democrats are doing and what we have to do is to obstruct, delay, use every little parliamentary tool we have to stretch this out. We did this last time. We put forth over 500 amendments and delayed it for 30 hours and had over 100 members in the Rules Committee, one by one. There was a line out the door, debating. We're doing the same thing this time. We have about 500 amendments up this time as well. The problem is the weather is not cooperating today, and a lot of members are stuck in travel, but there's people literally renting cars, driving no matter how far they are, getting on trains, figuring out what they need to do to get here so they can go and debate. I'll be up to debate later tonight, probably around 10 or 11 or midnight. And the debate's important because, again, it helps us delay this bill getting to the floor, which ups our chances of killing it.
So the Senate bill is different than the House bill. In many ways, it's worse than the House bill, but the Senate dumps on the Rules Committee 1,000 pages that nobody could possibly read 1,000 pages right away and know its implications, especially with the changes that are made in the Senate. So how is any diligence even being done at all by these MAGA Republicans who are trying to push this thing through? They would, if they had their way, they would take the 1,000 pages that they got.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even read it. And they would say yes.
And a lot of them are not going to read it. A lot of them are going to come in and vote on it, having never read it, having never understood the exact number of people will be impacted in their district. On the Medicaid cuts, on the nutritional assistance cuts, on all this stuff. It's going to rip away school lunch for millions of kids around the entire country. And so a lot of these people, and look, they were admitting it after the last vote. They were coming out saying, well, I didn't read it. They're still not going to read it. And that's why the delay is so important, is because it helps us to bring up the public pressure. And I see a bunch of people in the comments. We need everybody to make calls, to go get up off the couch, go protest, go to the district office. If you're around DC, come on to the Hill, because that inside-outside strategy of us working in here and the people working as well is how we're going to be able to hopefully delay and hopefully kill this bill, which is the ultimate goal.
One of the wild things, too, is you have a state like Alaska. They're a taker state. They get their funding a lot from other states. you have Lisa Murkowski, who represents Alaska, and she tried to get these kickbacks and special deals just for the 700,000, 800,000 people in Alaska. She ultimately says, my hope is that the House is going to look at this and recognize that we're not done there yet. But the thing is, too, she's screwing a state like Washington, which is Washington State, which is a blue state. Alaska doesn't even have a level 1 trauma center in their state hospital. So now she's screwing her own people who won't be able to go to the hospital. And a lot of people in Alaska go there. It's like they're not thinking this thing through because Trump's like big, beautiful bill, big, and it's like they're just listening to dear leader, and this thing's going to have ramifications. Can you go through with our viewers and listeners what are some of the worst provisions, or what did the Senate make worse?
Let's talk about some of the worst things in this bill. Number one, it's going to rip away health care from 17 million Americans. The biggest part of that is the cuts to Medicaid. We're talking about, I think it's anywhere between 12 to 14 million people will lose their health care there. Then a few extra million people will lose their health care because of changes to the Affordable Care Act. So that's the worst part of this bill, is ripping away health care from 17 million Americans. The other thing is nutritional assistance. It's going to rip away SNAP and WIC benefits for millions of working families across this country who Donald Trump during the campaign said, I'm going to, on day one, lower grocery costs. Costs have only gone up over him. And now he's going to take away the very lifeline that the families he lied to depend on, because not only has he not done shit to bring down prices, but he's actively made it worse via his reckless tariff policy. Then he's also going to make people's utility bills go up by hundreds of dollars, because they're going to completely get rid of a lot of the energy incentives and clean energy incentives for solar, for wind, for a lot of other things that have actually helped bring energy costs down for Americans. And when you rip the rug out from that in the middle of these projects, people across the country will see their energy costs go up. Not just that, but there's a lot more in terms of taking away resources from the middle class, from the working class, from the poor, and giving it to the rich. And people should know that this bill is the largest transfer of wealth from the working class and the working poor to the billionaires and mega corporations that we've ever seen in this country's history. It is an evil bill to help the billionaires, and that's what it is. So that's why we really have to continue to fight hard against it, because we're in it right now. Like this is the battle, and we've really been in the battle for several weeks here, several months since they passed the resolution many months ago.
Let's take this now town hall style. We got a number of questions and comments from MeidasTouch viewers I'd love for you to react to. The first is Jen Partica. Here's what she has to say. Let's play it and then get your reaction to it.
Hi, Ben and the awesome team at the MeidasTouch. My name is Jen Partica. I'm a registered nurse. I've been serving my community here in Northeastern Pennsylvania's 8th District for the past 30 years. During that time, I've raised 3 kids who are now grown and flown and on their own. One of my sons, who was a colicky baby, went on to have a lifetime of GI issues and was finally diagnosed with Crohn's disease several months after he turned 26, an age where he could no longer be insured on my health insurance. He was terribly sick when he was diagnosed, skin on bone with a BMI of 17 and severely anemic from the blood he was losing every single day. The biologic chemotherapy treatments he began receiving changed his life dramatically, and he will remain on these treatments every 8 weeks for the rest of his life. These treatments keep him healthy enough to live his life and to go to work every day. And as soon as he felt better, that's just what he did. He works in operations for a smaller local nonprofit. He makes just enough money that he has to reapply for his Medicaid frequently to make sure he still qualifies. Waste, fraud, and abuse does not happen. My son, like so many people on Medicaid, works over 40 hours a week. People on Medicaid are not the parasite class, as this horrible, out-of-touch administration has described them. They are your friends and your neighbors, and in this case, it's my son. He receives necessary life-saving help. He works hard at a nonprofit here in Northeastern Pennsylvania and at a job he loves. Many people on Medicaid are hardworking people who simply don't receive health insurance through their jobs. House Republicans, you are now being given a second chance to do what is right. Stealing from the poor, the sick, and giving to billionaires is not the way to be on the right side of history. The entire reason for all of this noise and nonsense is tax cuts for the rich who want for nothing. Nothing this Trump administration is doing will make their future generations proud. There are currently some Republicans who are doing their jobs and listening to their constituents on this big, ugly bill. Borrow their courage and stand with your community. Thank you for your work, guys. I listen all the time.
Congressman, what's your response there to Jen?
Yeah, well, first off, I just really want to thank her for telling the story of her family and what her son's going through. I mean, I, about 5 years ago, developed some very serious gut issues as well. That's made a really drastic impact on my life. And now as a member of Congress who travels a lot, it's something I have to personally deal with. But something I don't have to deal with as a member of Congress is my health care, because the United States Congress, we've given ourselves great health care. And at the same time, here's the hypocrisy. These Republicans are going to go and vote. They want to go vote on a bill to rip away healthcare from 17 million people like her son and people who are working, because let's dispel with the myth that people on Medicaid don't work. Most people who receive Medicaid work, and the people who cannot work. We're talking about seniors, people with severe conditions or disabilities, or children. And so it's important that people recognize this. But what I want to tell everybody listening is let's not use their language. They use the words work requirements, but what they're actually doing is different. What they're actually doing is adding red tape that's meant to kick off millions of people out of the system. They want to make it harder for working families to be able to access the benefits that they earned and that they deserve and that we have fought for. That's what they're doing. Don't say work requirements, because people are already working that are on Medicaid. They're adding red tape to get their own constituents kicked off the program.
And it's not like, like Medicaid's like making it rain on people. This it's not what this it's not what this is. Like, Medicaid is paid to providers for medical services that are rendered. They're like, this 35-year-old who's playing video games and mom and dad's basement is what? Is getting a back surgery or getting the medications they need to be like, I did it. No, you have to go through the procedure and get the services and actually do the thing. So it's like the most ridiculous and insulting perspective of human beings and the system. But who's getting the handouts? The people who are, in their G7 jets or whatever the hell they're called, or the yachts. It's the Jeff Bezoses of the world doing foam parties with their stepkids. What the hell are they doing in Venice? They're getting, they're the ones getting the bet. That's who's actually doing the things they're accusing the 35-year-olds of doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's crazy because it's interesting because they want socialism for the rich, and then they want crony corruption for the rest of us. I mean, it's insane. And these they talk a lot about giveaways, they talk a lot about entitlements, but there's no greater entitlement program than the billions of dollars of subsidies that we give polluters, that we give to the defense industry, that we give to people who are misusing our taxpayer dollars. I mean, if you really want to look into waste, fraud, and abuse, you're going to look into the Department of Defense, where only 25% of that budget goes to our actual service members and to the actual military. About 75% of it goes to contractors, and it hasn't passed an audit in decades. But they don't want to look at that because that's going to impact their billionaire donors. They want to look at the $6 or $7 a day that a single mother gets who is working on WIC or SNAP. And we have to call out the hypocrisy. So I really appreciate her bringing up her son's story, because unfortunately that story is not unique. It's a story that tons of people, millions of people, can really empathize with across this country. And look, here's the thing. We know that in this country, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sickness care system. This system sucks. This system is horrible as it is today, and they want to make it even worse.
Let's hear from Patrick, who reached out. Let's play Patrick.
Hi, I'd like to thank Ben and MeidasTouch for allowing me to submit this video. My name is Patrick Kearns. I'm a registered nurse. I live in the 1st Congressional District of Iowa. We're represented by Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks. She supported this bill when it went through the House and has indicated that she's going to continue to support it when it returns from the Senate. I hope she doesn't. This is going to have real world effects on my family and a lot of Iowans. My have two adult children that receive services from Medicaid. And the services that they receive are the difference between them living their best life and them living a marginal life, them being part of society or them being marginalized out and treated as other. They receive necessary services from Medicaid that allow them to live and to live in the community, live in an apartment by themselves and take part in community activities. And those things are going to be taken away if they lose Medicaid. This truly allows them to live their best life. This is also going to affect rural hospitals in Iowa, and it's going to impact people whether they have insurance or don't have insurance. If your community hospital closes down, it doesn't matter if you have great insurance yourself. But Medicaid is the largest funder of all of these rural hospitals. And they can say that it's not going to have an impact, but there's no way for people that lose access to Medicaid services are not going to have a bottom line influence on rural hospitals, especially critical access hospitals, which are in the most rural and most poor parts of my state. I want to encourage everybody to work as hard as they can to make sure that this bill doesn't pass, because it's going to have real life impacts on real life people. Thank you.
Congressman, your reaction.
No, I really appreciate him bringing up the real facts on the ground and how it's going to impact communities across the country, but specifically our rural communities. Because what people really need to understand is when you make these massive cuts to Medicaid, it's going to impact everybody. But there's many hospitals, community health centers, and clinics out there, especially in rural America, that have upwards of 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of the people that they serve are there on Medicaid. So if you cut that stream out and the ability for those people to go to these hospitals, to go to these clinics, to be able to get seen, you essentially cut out a lot of not just the revenue, but the ability for those places to stay open. And what people should know is a lot of these hospitals and clinics in rural America are already operating at a loss. So if you take out 40 to 70% of the patients that they see, not only will that impact people on Medicaid, but if it's the only hospital or clinic in your town, if it's the only one that is within 90 minutes of you or an hour of you, and it closes because Medicaid was gutted and 40 to 70% of the people they see are not going anymore, it'll impact you even if you have private insurance. It'll impact you even if you're on Medicaid. It'll impact everyone there. That's why these cuts to Medicaid will not just impact people on Medicaid, but it's going to impact people across the country who are in areas where there's only just a few places around you where you can go when you're sick.
Next up, we have Sarah with her 13-year-old daughter, Audrey. Let's play.
Hello, Ben, and thank you to MeidasTouch for letting us share our story. I'm Sarah Bloom Anderson, and this is my daughter, Audrey. We live in Hilliard, outside of Columbus, Ohio, in Representative Mike Carey's 15th Congressional District. Audrey is 13 years old, and she's beloved in our family. We're so lucky to have her. She's compassionate and loving and an amazing friend. Audrey has an active life. She dances, she rides horses, and she plays baseball. Audrey also has Pura syndrome, a rare genetic disorder. She has intellectual disabilities, seizures, mobility issues, cerebral palsy, and she's nonverbal, but very expressive. Medicaid provides a lot in our lives. G-tube supplies, her wheelchair, her speech device, but it also provides a caregiver for Audrey so that her father and I can work outside of the house. And instead of caring and spending all of our time just with Audrey. Medically complex and intellectually disabled kids like Audrey in the past were institutionalized. They didn't live at home where they were beloved. They didn't attend school where they could socialize and learn life skills. They didn't get to be part of their communities where they're invaluable contributors. When Audrey grows up, she'll need Medicaid too. Medicaid provides for adult day and work programs. She will be able to be part of our community with the people who love and care about her. Audrey's life is valuable as much as any other child. Audrey's life is big. She doesn't need words to be a good friend. She doesn't need to run a marathon to be able to dance. And she doesn't need a job to be an anchor in our community, but she does need Medicaid.
Congressman, your response.
Well, this one really hits home for me too, because number one, my mom was a special education teacher for 37 years. And so when I got into Congress, something that's really important for me is fighting for our disability community. And there's actually, the story they just gave reminds me of a constituent I have named JJ Holmes, who has a disability, but it has not stopped him from being a fierce advocate. And something he has told me is the same thing, that he can live at home with his mom. He's able to go around our entire community being a strong advocate, speaking to Ron DeSantis, politicians across Florida, advocating for his community. But part of the reason he's able to do this is because, like it was mentioned a long time ago, people like JJ and the family we just heard about, the children would be institutionalized and not be able to live at home. But it is because of Medicaid and like programs that people are actually able to have the resources they need to keep their family together, to keep their child at home, to be able to that they're able to have the care that they deserve, that they're able to grow up and get the resources that they need. And by making these massive cuts to Medicaid, you essentially put folks in a positions like that family where we could see children across the entire country literally not able to live with their families anymore because the families don't have the resources to pay for all this stuff themselves. This stuff is expensive, especially when you talk about multimodal care, which is the ability to take care of your loved one in many different situations, whether it is in a facility or at home, which is the right thing for so many families. And even as of now, I remember during the last year of my campaign for Congress, my grandma was really in the hospital the whole time. And I remember getting told by the doctor that she was essentially in the last few months of her life and she would have to stay at the hospital. And I remember asking, if we were rich and we had unlimited amounts of money, what could be different? And the main thing I heard from the doctor was, she said, well, you would be able to bring her home and she'd be able to have the same care at home and be comfortable at home with her family at home as she does here. But, you don't have those resources. And this is a day-to-day struggle for families across this country. And this bill not only throws them under the bus, but will result in people not being with their families, not having the resources they need, in many cases, to live.
Final question is from Dr. Eileen Conti. Here's what she's got to say.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Meidas Mighty. First of all, Ben and brothers, I wanted to thank you for having this wonderful podcast. It's a wonderful forum to let people express their opinions and to keep the truth out there. My name is Dr. Eileen Conti. I've been an ophthalmologist for almost 30 years. I live in Chester, New Jersey, which is Congressional District 7. My family and I, especially my sister Colleen in Vermont, we've been watching your podcast for almost 2 years now. So thanks again for having it. I wanted to tell you a story that sticks in my mind and that is very pertinent for these dark times. One of the many diseases I treat in my practice is glaucoma. And I have many patients that have glaucoma, which can lead to blindness if untreated. One patient in particular sticks in my mind because she was being treated with eye drops. And when I didn't see her for months and months and then a year and over a year, I was wondering what happened to her. When we finally saw her again, she said she had lost her Medicaid, so wasn't able to get her drops, and therefore she was now blind in one eye. If there are massive Medicaid cuts, millions of people will not just lose their vision, but much worse health issues will not be able to be taken care of if people do not have health insurance. So I am urging the congressmen and women, including our rep, Tom Keene, to please not vote for the big, not beautiful bill. If Medicaid cuts are made, millions of people will be affected negatively. So please, I urge you not to vote for it. Thank you again, Ben and brothers. Take care.
Congressman.
Yeah. Well, number one, I'm just so happy to see our providers, doctors, nurses speaking out. A lot of people know I got involved in politics because of Sandy Hook and because I didn't want to get shot in school. That's when I got involved in politics at 15 years old. And then I decided to run for Congress at 24 years old, all because of gun violence. And one of the most powerful people who are part of the gun violence movement, it's a group called This Is Our Lane, trauma surgeons who speak out about the impacts of gun violence that they see in the hospital. And so this is what we need right now. We need our doctors. We need our nurses. We need people to be speaking up, to talk about things they've seen happen with their patients, and how if Medicaid is cut to the levels they're saying, not only will, yes, people will die, people will lose their vision. It's a huge deal. And the problem here too is delays, because as you cut these systems, and a lot of people don't know, there's a $500 million cut to Medicare. Right. Well, a lot of people have been talking about Medicare, but there is a cut to Medicare and the administration of Medicare. And when these things are slowed down, anyone with a chronic medical conditions know that it's a matter of time with the appointments that you need, with the medication that you need. And people can go blind. People could lose limbs. People could die. But it just, again, it goes to show you, especially the Republican Party, they believe healthcare is a commodity. They believe that only the rich, only people that afford it should be able to be healthy. But we believe healthcare and being healthy is a human right of all people in this country. That's why we're fighting fiercely against it. And we know it's not enough to just oppose Trump and oppose this. My belief is, as we hopefully get back into the majority in the House, that we work to provide healthcare for every single American. Because the rebuttal to this horrible, destructive policy of ripping away healthcare from 17 million people is not, let's get healthcare back to those 17 million people. But the rebuttal is, let's get healthcare to everybody. And let's fix this system once and for all that profits off of the anguish, that profits off of the sickness and death of our people, and join the rest of the major world in saying every single one of our people have healthcare.
Finally, Congressman, before we go, what's your final message to everybody listening and watching out there? What can they do? What do you want them to know? We're recording this on July 1st. As I said, the MAGA Republicans in the House are trying to push this on the floor for a full vote on July 2nd. So what do we do? Where do we go from here?
Okay. First, everyone make calls to your local congressman, to your senators, make calls in other states, spend time calling, give your personal story. If you're around a local office that you can go to, find a group and show up and make sure they know, of course, in a nonviolent way, make sure they know that you're upset about what's going on. Share your personal stories. Find ways to create buzz around this in your local community. There's great organizations that are plugging people in. Indivisible is one of them. There's a lot of local organizations as well. Make your voice heard very loudly right now. That we're in it right now. And if you're someone at home that's like posting a lot about it, that's good. Post about it. Make sure your friends know about it. But the most important thing we can do is reach out to legislators, especially the Republicans in Congress. Go online, look at which are the ones that are on the fence right now, and make sure they hear from us loud and clear.
Congressman Maxwell Frost, we appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for watching this special edition of the MeidasTouch podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. Let's keep on fighting for our democracy, everybody. We'll see you next time. Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.